In this video, I want to go over how to use pattern brushes within Illustrator. This is just a simple graphic of a plant. It's flat color, and I think the use of a pattern brush in order to add some shading and highlighting to it can really add some interest. And you're going to see how a pattern brush, specifically one of the brushes from the set, brush number 13, is going to be used to pull that off. Now, all a pattern brush this is the source art shown right here, is it repeats from left to right seamlessly. So if I copy this and slide it over, it would align perfectly with the right and on the left. That's all a pattern brush is. So that's all you have to keep in mind as you're using it. Now, to apply a pattern brush, you can select the paintbrush tool like this. You can select the brush itself. You can select a color. In this case, let's go with the dark green. We don't need a fill. Fill can be nothing because brushes are applied to paths and they don't have fills. So with this brush selected, we can now just draw out however we want our brush. And actually, that one's going in the wrong direction. So we'd have to go in this direction. Once we've painted it out, using the stroke will control how large a given application of that brush is. And then obviously you can adjust the opacity and the blend mode to pull off and achieve anything you want. But if you feel more comfortable using the pen tool, you can also use the pen tool in order to pull off the kind of vector building you might find easier, which is building a path. Once you have the path, once again, whatever color the path is will be the color the brush takes on. Once you have a path, you just click a brush and it applies it. Now you can see it applied it this way because pattern brushes have specific directions. If you ever want to change that, you could have this brush selected and you could go duplicate brush and then go into this brush setting and you can flip it. So if you don't want it to run this way, if we flipped it, you can see how it runs the other way. We go OK, and now we could select this, go this, and it would go the other way. So lots of different ways. Those are actually that looks really horrible. We don't we don't want to do that unless you're after a horrible look or whatever. But that's how you can control the orientation of a brush on a path, is you can do it that way. You can lay it down using the paint tool or a vector path built with the pen tool. In this case, we don't need this extra brush, so we're going to move it. So in order of detailing this, one thing I should point out is as we work, here's some paths I've already laid down that we're going to apply this brush to. But one thing you'll notice is I select this brush and go ahead and paint it. And in this case, we want this to be bigger and we want to control the opacity. So we're going to make that, I'm going to make it really faint. And you might think that's too faint, but once I hit multiply, it'll be a little darker. Actually, maybe that should be darker. Yeah, I think 20% looks better actually. Then we'll take this one, we'll apply that, change it to 2%, and we will go with 20. That does look better now that I think about it, and we'll go multiply. So this is going to be the shading on this artwork, but how do you get it so it goes into only the areas you want? Well, this is where you're going to have to use masking. And all I mean by that is I've pre-created this like a good cooking show. So here's the entire design perimeter. It's just a stroke outline, and that is going to mask this right side of the shading. So with that on top, you can just mask it. And to mask something, you just go to Object, down to Clipping Mask, and Make. But I have shortcuts set up for all this type of stuff. So I use the F1 key. So with it selected, I can hit F1. And if you want to know more about shortcuts and kind of the whole creative process from drawing to vector, check out my drawingvectorgraphics.com, and those are design courses I do that go over all those type of things. Now on the left side with this other shading, I've isolated it down to just these 3 leaves, so I can select this and mask it into shape, and you get a really nice looking and feeling using this kind of brush. Now we can go ahead and move on to the next one, and this is what will make up the highlights. So we can select this, apply the brush. Now on this one specifically, we're going to want this again at 2 to match the aesthetic of the other ones, and we don't need to use multiply. If we did multiply, white would just disappear, it wouldn't show up. We just want this faint. Another 20% I think is going to work. We'll select these shapes like this, apply the brush, and you can select multiple shapes and apply them all at the same time and adjust the color at the same time, and if you want to, adjust the transparency at the same time. Now in order to pull this off, we're going to have to use masking again, but this one we're going to have multiple little ones in order to isolate the specific areas, such as the top here. So we'll mask that. This leaf with this highlight right here, specifically this leaf with this highlight, this leaf with this highlight, and for the center part, these 3 and that, and we'll mask it together. So when it's all said and done, you can get a nice look in and kind of organic, stipulized type of shading on your design using a pattern brush.